Hello everyone, and welcome to my restoration video. I was doing these on Facebook for my friends live streaming, and I decided, well, why not add them to my YouTube channel? I haven't added anything to my YouTube channel in a while, so here we go. I'm set up here to restore this old photograph of my mother and her dad, my grandfather. And I'm using Adobe Photoshop 2023. And though this really isn't I don't know, a how-to video, I will let you know my methods that work for me that I have done for years. If there's an easier way, I'd love to learn, but this is how I do it. I've already made a lot of progress on these wallet photos here. They're like 2x3, I think. And my father had them scanned in with a service in the early 2000s. So I have my original photo here, which is like a sepia. So how I work is I will make a copy of that, and I went into Camera Raw and made it monochrome, and then made adjustments, contrast and things like that. And after I made adjustments of that, then I duplicated it into a work layer, and then created what's called a safe layer. So my safe layer is where I did like the bulk treatment adjustments of brightness, saturation, exposure, all that. And then I'll lock it, and then I work on a copy of that so that if I have to erase, like if I get so far along that I like to work myself into a corner and end up having to do a spot erase, I can erase to the layer below, merge it, and then create a new safe layer, work layer. I hope that makes sense. What I use the most when I do this, of course, is going to be the dodge and burn tools. I use those quite a bit. Sometimes I'll use a sharpen tool. I mostly use the healing brush tool and the spot healing brush tool. And I like to use a grid, which is 1 inch by 1 inch, and I work like one square at a time, sort of like they do in archaeology. And as you can see here in my progress, I've made my way and finished the center square yesterday, removing this gunk from a piece of tape that was in the scan. And these photos were in an album, and I haven't seen them for years. I think one of my siblings has it. But these were also on one of those sticky wax album things, and and you put the clear film over it. So what I'm mainly doing is I picked the clearest picture here. Look at it at a 100% of my grandfather and my grandmother. This photo was probably taken in spring of 1926. Maybe it's an Easter photo or something like that. The white hat seems to be a summer hat. And my mother is probably about 8 months, 9 months old here. Something like that. So who we have here is, and it'll probably screw up in the captions when you do the automatic captions, is this is Benjamin King Fairman Jr. and his oldest daughter, Zelma Grace Fairman, who is my mother. So let's dive right in. Thanks for joining today. And if you like this, give it a like. If not, don't give it a like. If you want to follow, follow. But I think I'm going to start doing some restoration videos. Now, I will warn you, I work from my home, and you will hear my dog possibly bark on occasion. I'll try to filter that out in editing. You might hear an airplane fly over because I live near a naval air station. So, welcome to my house. You'll hear some things in the background. So, let's dive right in. I left off yesterday here working on this little portrait here of my mom, so we're going to move on to the next square. I'm going to start with the spot healing brush, which is what I like to use. Just get rid of the spots I don't want first. And one of the things I like trying to do, if you've already seen my other video on my Facebook and you're a friend of mine watching, I don't think I have it for public viewing. I explained that I like to take care of all the little dots first, and I like to work as small as possible on my work layer. See, that way I can see where I come and go, see, which is kind of satisfying. And it's also like how artists, restoration artists, restore paintings. Go up to about 300 and something percent here, not too much. Is they stipple one like small stipple at a time. Well, what I just did right there, of course, you can see I want to preserve the texture and the grain of the print and the texture of this really thick photo paper that they used back then. So in order to get that, I need to get as small as I can. So let's undo that. Oop, let's redo that. Okay, let's save just to be careful here. And I'm going to go ahead and save a copy in case lightning strikes. Knock on wood. My folder here. My mom's name was Zelma, which is an awesome name. I've always loved that name. So let's start up here. I'm not going to do this out here because I plan on trimming. I'm just going to do the actual photo itself. I'm going to bring it down kind of small, maybe 5 pixels. And I'm using a semi-soft brush. The brush I'm using it's about 15% hardness with 1% spacing. So what I want to do is using the healing brush tool and just a small, excuse me, I've got like something, there we go, in my throat. And what I do is I just go through and sample nearby. And what that does is that helps me preserve this texture bit by bit. Because if I use the spot healing brush largely like that, you'll see where it just gets puffy and powdery, see? So I don't want that. In some cases you can do that, but for this I don't want to. So let's move forward here. It's a rainy day where I'm at. Today is Armistice Day, or Veterans Day in America, Remembrance Day in UK. And the reason being is, if you don't know the history, is on the 11th day, well, let me put it this way. At the 11th hour, on the 11th day of the 11th month of 2008, oh Lord, listen to me. On the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month in 1918, the armistice ceasefire was signed, which led to the end of World War I, the war to end all wars. 20 million people lost their lives in World War I, estimated. So that's why Veterans Day is November 11th for America, and I think it is for the UK, November 11th is as well. So it's only fitting because BK Fairman here, BK, I know it, Burger King, I know, right? But every time I see his name, that's what I think about. I need to edit that out. No, okay. I shouldn't say Burger King. Whatever. So anyway, BK here is a World War I veteran. He passed away in 1972. And he is an interesting gentleman, or was an interesting gentleman, whom I only met when I was very young, and I don't remember it. He was in a veterans hospital in Georgia, and he was there for the better half of his adult life. Now, there's a lot of stories about this guy. He's super interesting. A lot of, I wouldn't say necessarily family legends or anything. Pardon me. I need to wet my whistle here so I can talk better. But he, when he was drafted in the U.S. Navy in 1918, as America was, or the United States was entering into the war. Now, I'm going to try to, you'll have fun listening to me stumble. I stumble a lot when I talk. Okay, so have fun laughing. And I'll say things backwards sometimes. Okay, so BK here was drafted into the Navy in 1918, from what I can tell. Now, my mom died in 1993, and she was born in 1925, August of 1925. That's why it's easy to say that, you know, this is 1926 when this photo was taken at a studio most likely in Atlanta, Georgia. So like all things genealogy-wise, there are always questions about, was he really born in this year? Was he or she, you know, do they really do this? Did they really do that? Because it was all, you know, paper records and things back then. And even today, record keeping can have its faults. It really can. So, working on the brim here. That looks kind of muddy there. There, that fixed it. When I say muddy, that means this nice pixelization that you see here. It smooths out too much. And I know at 100% you can't see it. But hey, it's just me. You know, that's the way I am. This is how far we've come so far. And what is this? Square number 6? So he's in the Navy, and my mom and my aunts said that he was on the USS Texas. Now, the USS Texas in 1918 was in the Atlantic Fleet in that version of the USS Texas, and it was a battleship, and it was like the goddess of all battleships. You know, it was the thing, the ship to be on. Now, for most of the war, from what I can tell in my research at a glance, USS Texas spent most of its time hunting submarines and shooting at periscopes in the North Atlantic over the shipping lines there. And then later on, after World War I, it also did some service in World War II. But anyway, I can't find anything that ever said he was on USS Texas, but he was definitely in the Navy, and he was definitely a fireman apprentice, according to his VA card at the hospital. A fireman apprentice is not a person that puts out fires. In the Navy, a fireman is a person that works in the engineering part. I guess it comes from stoking the fire for the boiler to boil the water to make the steam to turn the propeller. So he definitely was an apprentice, which means that apprentice 2, which means he was at his second pay grade. Now, family legend has it, and you got to remember, this comes from a time when, you know, families didn't talk as openly about things as they do these days. They don't talk openly about uh, mental health issues. They didn't talk openly about mental health issues and things back in the day. That was a skeleton in the closet. You didn't want to reveal any of that. You wanted to just keep your pride. Nowadays, you're encouraged to talk about it. It's more acceptable and things like that. So the point I'm trying to make is, let me pop a little sharpness right in here. There, that fixed that. And what I'm doing with the sharpness is I'm just adding back a little bit of pixelation to hide the clone. Sorry, I will digress several times. So anyway, the story goes, I've heard that the ship was torpedoed and he was trapped in a compartment or a boiler room or something like that. Or he hit his head on something or whatever. Either way, there was something that caused him to have some sort of trauma after the war, mental health trauma. Now, it could have been PTSD or something like that. I just don't know. We don't know. But it was enough for him to be hospitalized after 1940. So, first of all, according to my research, USS Texas was never torpedoed in World War I, so we can rule that out. Being stuck in an engine room or something, possibly there could have been an accident or something like that on USS Texas. And actually, today, of all days, I submitted to the National Archives military records to try to see if I can get more information about him. I'm pretty sure if I went to Ancestry.com, it might be there. But either way, being a proud sort, my family, I don't like that. I don't like that at all right there. My family, of course, let's burn that a little bit, burn the highlights a little bit. I mean, nobody wants to say, back then, you just didn't say, my husband was crazy or whatever, or had mental health problems. Yeah, that's rough right there. So, given that, after the war, my grandmother and this guy, who's awesome, my mom thought the world of him. Well, I fixed this little thing right here. My mom told me that, yeah, there was something there mental health wise. So I stop and think while I'm doing 100%. It's getting there. So either way, after the war in the early 20s, I don't know if he married my grandmother or not. I can't find anything there either. But he and my grandmother, they hooked up. They probably met in Atlanta somewhere. And my grandmother's side of the family, they're from rural South Carolina in the Northwest. And I think what happened was, um, my grandmother went to Atlanta, which was real easy because the rail line ran almost straight from where they lived. My grandmother went to Atlanta to find work in the early 1920s, met BK here, relationship, and the next thing you know, ta-da, kids. Now, in 1922, they had a son. His name was Charles. But Charles, passed away a few days after he was born from jaundice. And nowadays, when children are born with jaundice, they put them under a lamp, they call it a billy lamp, bilirubins, I think it is, for a couple of days until the jaundice goes away, the yellowing of the skin. But little Charles didn't make it, and he was buried in Decatur Cemetery in Georgia, and which happened to end up being the Fairman, Fairman, the Fairman. And I'm spelling that because I know when I do the captions on this, it's going to call it all kinds of things. It's the Fairman family plot, and so Charles was buried there, and then my great-grandfather and great-grandmother are buried there. BK and my grandmother are buried there. My mother is buried in South Carolina, and she passed away in 1993. I'm going to pop a sharp on that right there. See if you can't tone that down a little bit. It's good to look away and come back. Sometimes I'll come back the next day with fresh eyes, I call it, and see something else to fix. Now, here's a common thing you see a lot in Photoshop when people do cloning and retouching, is you'll see like a repetitive clone, like these 3 dots here. That's another reason I like to stay small and come in and get rid of a couple of them. Okay, that didn't work too well, but it's worked a lot better. So my mom was the next child to be born, and she was born in 1925. And she was born in Atlanta, so they were living in Atlanta at the time. And my Aunt Mary was born, I think, in 1927 in Atlanta. And then the youngest of my aunts, Aunt Helen, I think was born in South Carolina. So the family was between South Carolina and Atlanta, between the mid-1920s all the way through the Great Depression into 1940, World War II, in 1941. And my mom says when they were living in Atlanta, in Decatur, Georgia, it was like a suburb of Atlanta then, but now it's kind of a classy place to be. You know how people will take an old part of town and redevelop the old houses and stuff, Every city's got a district that's been historically restored by the residents or, homeowners, etc., of all types. So in this particular area of Decatur, and I think I know where it is, because Atlanta has little hills here and there everywhere. It's near where another one of my aunts on my grandfather's side lived. And the back of these houses was higher than the front of the house on the street. So basically, if you walked through the house and go out the back door, you would have to go down a certain amount of stairs to either the driveway or the yard below. And I remember in this area, similar house that my Aunt Ruth had, who is my grandfather's sister. And when I was a kid, I used to go there with my mom to visit. She was my great aunt. And I remember they had these scary stairs, man, that went down without railings from the back porch of their house. So I'm picturing something like that. Anywho, so my mom told me a story one time and my mom would always talk about the family as if, okay, I'm going to tell you a story. You didn't know if you should like keep it a secret or what or anything. It's just my mama's old school. I was born way late, so um, I'm probably one of the few surviving grandchildren, um, because I know a lot of my cousins that were older than me are in their 70s now. But get on with the story, Mark. So one of my aunts, or my mom, but I think my mom said one of my aunts was on a tricycle or a bicycle or something. And they went down these back stairs, tumbled down. They ended up being okay. They probably skint a knee or something, and it was totally fine, doing things kids do. Well, he comes home. I think he was working as a painter or an electrician at the time. I'm not sure. The census says different things. So he comes home, finds out about it, and this is probably 1930. I'm going to say around 1930, or late 20s, and yeah, probably around 1930, mid 30s. So um, he picks up this tricycle, bicycle, whatever it was, and my mom says he wrapped it around a tree and just tore it to pieces with his bare hands. He was just in this huge rage, um, because he was quite overprotective of his children. My mom thinks it's because, when Charles passed away as an infant. Take a deep breath here because I'm starting to talk in circles. My dog is like making these. My dog is a Shiba Inu, and Shiba Inus make this like squeal scream thing that they do. It's weird. And when I'm talking, but I'm not talking to anyone, he'll go ew, ew. And I'll have to stop for a few minutes. I don't know if he thinks. I guess he's just recognizing it's not ordinary, or who knows. He might be like, "Shut up! I'm trying to nap." His bed is right next to my chair here. He's my work buddy. Okay, that needs to be dark. There, not there. There, not there. There we go. There. It pays to go back and look, because I don't know if something's actually in the print or if it's damage. So I go and look, and if it's there in the print, then it's pretty much like, I'm sure this tone in here is, say, in the print. All right. So he had several episodes, according to my mom, and that's just one of them. And back then, they used to call it shell shock, I guess. But who knows? I don't know what the diagnosis was. So, but families, like my grandmother and my aunts and stuff like that, because of pride, they didn't really talk much about it. It wasn't really until, I'm going to say, Vietnam, and I could be wrong, but it's my humble opinion that nobody really started taking mental health seriously until Vietnam, as far as veterans, war veterans. I mean, if they did, I'm not aware of it, let me know if there were like programs back then. But in my experience, like I was a kid during Vietnam, but I do know that the government, especially, and the Veterans Administration, let me I put this line here as a marker to let me know that I'm going down to the next square. Oh, I see a couple of scratches from yesterday on my mom's cheek. Let me fix those. Fresh eyes. Oh crap! I just made it worse. Um, there we go. That's good enough. So my mom and her sisters, they used to call them the Fairman girls. They pretty much grew up in South Carolina with like both sides of grandparents, I think. And mostly with my mom would mention Grandma Fairman a lot. So I'm thinking that was BK's mom. She would take care of the kids while they worked in Atlanta, especially during the Great Depression. And this was a time of like gangsters and prohibition and all kinds of stuff. But each generation has its thing. My generation has Vietnam and 9/11 and all of that. My mom's generation had World War II and Korea and some of Vietnam. There's a lot of veterans in my family. I'm a veteran. My wife is a veteran. My brother is a Vietnam era veteran. Thank goodness he didn't end up going, but he would have. He volunteered, but he didn't get selected to go. My dad, of course, retired from the Army after 20 years. I got some photos of him to restore that I want to. I don't have to. All I have are digital copies. A lot of these photo albums, I don't know where they're at anymore. I think one of my siblings, like I said before, has them. So there's a little ghost line right there I need to break up from the edge of the tape. And it's hard to see sometimes because when it was scanned, I don't know if the tape was still there or not. It's hard to tell. I really don't see an edge where the tape was. All I see is if we look at our safe layer, you can see where it was definitely cellophane tape, but I don't see a shadow edge like you see here from the scan. So I think it was just, I don't know, who knows? You think it would have destroyed the photo, right? Working on the home stretch kind of here. So anyway, they grew up in a farm environment. And I remember my mom telling me that they picked cotton, and I think that was the main thing that they picked. And this was in South Carolina near the Georgia border, in a place they call the Golden Corner, Oconee County. And a lot of where the fields were back then have been flooded because Hartwell Lake, the Hartwell Reservoir from Hartwell Dam was built in the 60s, I think, and the water backed up to where all these fields were. But some are still visible in the area. I know that there's the barn is still standing according to Google Maps satellite imagery where my mom used to live. Their old school is probably torn down, but I remember it was abandoned for years in their community. And here. I'm using the spot removal tool here. I don't know why it seems to be doing better. See, I'm pressing the Alt key is how you map where you want to sample from. Like whenever you see little crosshairs, I'm pressing the Alt key and I want to sample from a nearby area. But you can also kind of do that with the spot tool, but what it does is content aware. It automatically finds somewhere to duplicate, but as you can see, it doesn't want to do correctly. So that's why I spend a lot of time in the actual healing brush tool itself. Select my own nearest and neighboring pixels. So there were 3 girls called the Fairman girls. And my dad met my mom while he was, I guess, either courting or flirting with my Aunt Mary. Instead of being interested in my Aunt Mary, he became interested in my mom. And my daughter and my mom, especially in the younger photographs, are strikingly similar. Our heritage, my mom's side with BK here, the heritage is German and British. Scottish, Irish, English, mostly English, I think. And the Fairman name, you would want to think that it was German or German Jewish, but it's not. When I traced it back, the name was changed several times. It goes all the way back to where, like a Furman or something like that. And believe it or not, I saw where a relative in our family tree found that one of his grandfathers actually got married in Salem, Massachusetts in the mid 1600s, and his wife was alive during the witch trials, and his children were alive during the witch trials, but he died before the witch trials in the 1890s. And I looked at the children's tree and stuff, and none of them were the accused. But it made for really interesting stuff. And photo restoring / retouching is very therapeutic to me. There's a sense of satisfaction in it. You know, click, make that go away. Click, make that go away. It's almost one of those satisfaction things. I'm even going to put that on this video. It's one of those oddly satisfying photo retouching. See, I come back and look at these places and look for these like flat, muddy spots. And then I'll put a little bit of sharp on it. There. And then look at it at 100%. Not bad. Let's see how far we've come with square number 6 up there. Oh yeah, doing pretty good. That's pretty good. That seems a little rough though. That does seem a little rough. Okay. There's this thing where I call look back mode, where I'll go away for a few hours or wait till the next day and then come back and look at it with fresh eyes. And I will see parts that need work, like right there. So even though I sharpened that up, I think I'll go in and blur it just a little bit. I don't know if I want to blur it though. Let me try just a spot heal here, see if it'll soften it up. Nope. The spot heal wants to borrow God knows where. Where's the spot he'll want to borrow from? Oh, it's borrowing from below. That's wild. That's wild. Look at that. Why does it want to do that? That's crazy. No, Mark, you're not on the spot healing brush. I get them confused a lot. Okay, then I get kerfuffled, my son says, and get all like, press the wrong key, and there we go. That's perfect, Mark. You gotta be able to laugh. You just gotta. Okay, there we go. That softened it some. Let's go back up to 100%. There's a little dent there. I'm going to leave that. I'm not going to, well, no, I'm not going to leave that. There we go. Because is that, yeah, because that definitely is damage on the brim there. So let's come back, get the healing brush tool. Bring it down, bring it down, bring it down. Remap it. In the old days, I've been using Photoshop since 1994. There we go. And back then it was Photoshop 3. And when you would do this kind of work on a scanned image, like a negative scan or something like that, all you really had was the clone tool, the old school clone tool over here. And you would get really creative with that and different brushes and stuff. There's some dupes in here. There and there. There and there. And there. This shadow comes through here. Let's see which shadows were there and which shadows were not. Let's heal that. I want this to go right like that. Close. Close. So my mom's family on both sides, mainly my grandmother's side, go all the way back to settling that area. Let me turn off the grid here. Go back to settling that area of South Carolina along with a lot of other German and Dutch immigrants. And my great-great-grandparents, one set of my great-great-grandparents, one is from Berlin, Germany, and one is from Amsterdam, and they came over to the United States as immigrants in 1850 something, I think 1854. So when you add that up with my dad's side, I'm pretty much a full European American, Western Europe, and some Eastern Europe. I'm sure there's some Polish in there somewhere. I don't know, man. I need to do that DNA thing. But hey, those things ain't cheap, are they? I don't know, man. A couple $100. See, now I'm obsessing over square number 6. Or that's better. When I'm supposed to be focusing on square number 7, which is this one. Okay. All right, back to it. Save it up. Oop. Select a layer. All right, Mark, onto it. You can come back to that later. Yeah, I love talking to myself too. I talk to myself a lot when I do this stuff. You know, my family walks by and I go, "How are you, dude? Whatever." I'm like, "Go away. I'm working." Now, I get my love of photography from my father, and I hope to show you some of his photographs that he took. He got a 35 millimeter Canon camera in the early 1950s, and I tried to fix that dang thing one day and broke it even more, but my dad was okay with that. But in the 70s, I took photography in high school, and my dad bought me a Canon FTB manual camera, and that's this around the same time the AE1 came out, a Canon camera, and I'm working on this dress here. That's in the picture. But the Canon FTB was totally manual. It had a built-in light meter, and you would turn the aperture on the inside, had a little circle that you would, like this circle on the screen, where you would match it to wherever the light meter needle was. And if the light meter needle was off the scale and you couldn't get to it, it was either overexposed or underexposed. It was kind of cool. I miss that camera. I almost bought one on eBay for $35. But yeah, still got some pictures. I had that all the way up until I was in the Navy. Myself and my cousins and my grandfather, I think, are the only Navy veterans in my family of origin. I had a cousin who was on the USS America. I think he's still alive in Vietnam. And other than that, everybody was Army. I had a nephew that was Air Force. Have a nephew that was Air Force. Even my dad's uncle, my grandfather's brother was, I think it was his brother. It might be it might be my dad's great uncle. No, it had to be his uncle. Was in World War One, and he was in the artillery, and he survived the war and came back to North Georgia. So as you can see, there's a difference here. There's a difference right here. You can see where it's darker where the tape was. It's starting to show itself. My cat's meowing. My cat talks. He says, "I love you. I hate you." So here we go. We're starting to see where the tape is showing itself right there. See it? Ain't that crazy? So should we dodge it? Should we dodge that? Oh, would you look at that? That looks like a tear in the tape right there. How interesting. But yeah, we definitely got to fix these tones right here. One way or another, after I get all the gunk out of the way. I have no war stories from my father, really, actually, or anybody in my family. It's just that's not what they did. They really didn't tell war stories. And I guess it was like an honorable thing. It's kind of different. Nowadays, when there's wars, there's a photographer right there next to the guy. It's like you see everything. And that started like back in '92 with the Gulf War in Vietnam as well. But Vietnam wasn't, I don't think it was live, but it came close. I do know when I studied photography and photojournalism that they would have to get their negatives to a certain point developed, and they would like use this drum system, like an early fax machine kind of thing, where you would put it in this drum and it would transmit across the telephone line to the newspaper back in the States or wherever. Very interesting stuff, I think. Okay, here we go. Let's save up because this is a very critical thing we're about to do, and I don't want to mask it. So there's a time and place for masking. This isn't one of them. So let's go in here, and I'll end the video in this square too. Well, let's get rid of all the gunk first. I want to leave that. That adds character. As my mom here would say, that adds character. So my mom was a Southern belle somewhat. Not like what I would call the romanticized Southern belle, like Scarlett O'Hara and stuff like that. But, you know, she had her manners and her ladylike manners and stuff, and her etiquette and all those things. I guess Grandma Fairman made sure of that. Like I said earlier, she mentioned Grandma Fairman a lot. Grandma Fairman this, Grandma Fairman that. Oh, that was back when you'd have to go get a switch that they would spank you with. You go and get a switch from a tree. So here we go. Let's save this, and let's save a copy too. Because yes, I have seen files corrupt before. Nope, wrong button. Save a copy. All right, let's go in and do some dodging. I want it to be very soft and subtle. Let's start with an exposure of maybe 4% looks good. Midtones. Nice soft brush. Let's bring it up a little bit. And let's do one swipe and see what happens. I want to go down with the tape. So that's one pass. That's two pass. 3, 4, 5. And it doesn't have to be all the way down to the actual original photo itself. In color, it would be very difficult, but with this, as long as I can get the right side, actually, it'd probably be better if I mimicked this darker part over here. That way I wouldn't have to dodge all the way this way. That would make it easier. So let's go back to the history and go back to the save a copy. Instead of dodging, let's do some burning. See how that works. We got our safe layer, everything's backed up, we're good to go. You know, I tried Adobe, and their neural filters has this new thing that they're coming out with. It's beta. That's called photo retouching. You know, it's a one button click kind of thing, sort of two button click kind of thing. So I tried that the other day, and I'm like, oh, I don't know. Maybe for some situations, yeah, but you know, not this. So we want to burn highlights. That kind of looks okay and is all blended in. So, but it's obvious where that line is. Sometimes my brush doesn't increase or decrease with my keys. I have to click in order to decrease the size. The brackets, left and right brackets, are the brush increase and decrease shortcut. And sometimes it just doesn't want to work right. So this is 5%. Let's do one pass. That came kind of close. Let's go one more. Okay. Let's add one right here straight down. Let's go again. One more. Let's unprotect the tones and see what happens. There we go, that helped. My cat is like messing around with something near the fireplace. One more pass without protect tones. And let's go one more time. 5% at a time. Doing just the highlights. Let's grab some midtones now that it's getting a little darker, so it'll react to the midtones. And back up. And if I do it just right, the line here should look like a scar on her arm. Just going to dodge that a little bit for the balance. Okay, so now let's put protect tones back because I usually keep it there. Let's see if we can get something going if we break this part up. It's a scar, so we're going to heal it. Whoop. Let's bring this here, create a little more texture. Blur my vision. Well, I don't have to blur my vision. I've got trifocals, so I just look through the bottom one where it's blurry. And a lot of times, if you blur your vision, you can see things. All right, stick that there. I think we're going to quit today with this frame. It looks like, I don't know what that is there. That's her leg. That's obviously diaper, but no, that's his hand. There's his fingers, see? See how his fingers are like holding her up there? Yeah, that's his hand. Dig that. That's groovy. So we need to come in through there and fix those. And then that's probably where her dress is in the back. So that's finger number 1. Correct some shadows in there. Yep. Okay. So this area right here is supposed to be light. I darkened it up, so let's fix that to where it's more like the actual photo. See if that goes away. That's better. Okay, and here his finger's a little higher. So All right. Take care of a few little things here. We're going to end here today. Thanks for listening to my story about my family. Um, thanks for watching if you made it this far. Highly recommend trying some retouching with Photoshop. If you get a flatbed scanner and scan in some old photos, after a while, be a champ. Let's look at it at 100% and see where we're at. Wait. Let's save it up. Save a copy. Because it's still saving. Right? And my dog wants to go walk too, so save the copy. And I use a PC, by the way, and nowadays I use Nikon cameras. All right. I'm going to sleep on that and come back and look at it tomorrow. All right, let's look at it 100%. Control 1. It is kind of hot. Let me dodge it one time. There we go. Less is more. All right. Benjamin King Fairman Jr. and Zelma Grace Fairman in 1926. Thanks so much for putting up with my rambling and my tongue-tied world and my blah, 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 the way I talk. Give it a try. It's fun stuff. And I think I'll post this one. Have a good one. See you next time. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to. But hey, it's my hobby. Take care. Peace be with you.